welcome back to Mystery Island. We certainly hope you're having fun as we continue to search for the one and true living God.
Yesterday's mystery word was great.
And here's today's mystery word. See if you can figure it out.
Mystery Island, a place of discovery, a place for you and me.
Way out in the ocean, rising up above the sea, is a land of wonder, is a land of mystery.
Mystery Island, hoo-ha, Mystery Island, hoo.
So much to discover, so much for us to see. God's truth never failing, all the way through history.
Mystery Island, hoo-ha, Mystery Island, hoo.
There's a place you gotta see, a land of discovery. It's Mystery Island, Mystery Island. Searching for the ancient truth, hand it down to me and you. Mystery Island, come on! Won't you come along with me? On a search to the island, for the clues hidden all around. Our God is a treasure, just waiting to be found.
Mystery Island, hoo-ha, Mystery Island, hoo. Mystery Island, hoo-ha, Mystery Island.
There's a place you gotta see, a land of discovery. It's Mystery Island, Mystery Island. Searching for the ancient truth, hand it down to me and you. Mystery Island, come on! Won't you come along with me?
Mystery Island, it's a place for you and me. Ready for discovery? The deeper you dig, the more you will find. Cause that's how it works on Mystery Island. The path is narrow, so stay on track. But the treasure is yours if you follow the map. God is faithful, God is strong. I can sing of his love all the day long. God is powerful, holy and true. I'm ready for mystery, how about
There's a
you?
place you gotta see, a land of discovery. It's Mystery Island,
It's Mystery Island.
Mystery Island. Searching for the ancient truth, hand it down to me and you. Mystery Island,
It's Mystery Island.
Mystery
It's a place for you and me.
There's a place you gotta see, a land of discovery. It's Mystery Island,
It's Mystery Island.
Mystery Island. Searching for the ancient truth.
It's a place of discovery. It's a place for you and me. Won't you come along with me?
Won't you come along with me?
Mystery Island, hoo-ha, Mystery Island, hoo.
You from the planets, you spinning round. You know my words before I make a sound. You move the mountain and calm the sea. And just like Jonah, you rescued me. Mighty, mighty is our God. Mighty, mighty is our God. You are powerful and true. You will always see me through. Mighty, mighty is our God. Mighty, mighty is our God. Mighty, mighty. You make the sun rise. You bring the rain. You knew my heart before I knew my name.
Okay, I am done. Tell the plane to pick me up and take me home.
I'm not sure the plane could find us here. Or, have room to land.
I don't care. My feet hurt, my legs hurt, and I'm never going to be able to walk again.
Well, maybe we take a little break and have a little snack.
Ooh.
Oh.
Really? You're reading on a tropical island adventure.
I don't even want to read when they make me in school.
Wait, you guys are telling me that you didn't do your research before coming here? Really? You don't want to know more about the island that we're exploring?
Doesn't that kind of, defeat the purpose of exploring?
Well, what can I say? I like to know things. For example, did you know that an octopus has 3 hearts? And there's even an octopus native to the Octopus Inlet that has a rainbow blanket instead of 8 legs.
That's weird.
And because they have no bones, they can squeeze in and out of really tight places.
Oh, I saw a video of that once. It is crazy.
Are you like an octopus expert now? You seem to know everything about them.
Well, not everything, but I know someone who does.
Who?
God does. He's omniscient. He knows everything.
He's what?
He's on fishing. Pay attention, Sam.
No. I said God is omniscient. Is one of the 3 things that describe him. He knows everything. He's all-powerful, and he's everywhere at once.
Oh, I get that he's all powerful and he created the universe, and I get that he knows everything, but how can he be everywhere at once?
It's like the flapjack octopus.
Okay, now I know you're making that up. That octopus is not real.
No, it's totally real. It's this octopus that lives down in the bottom of the sea.
Mm-hmm. Not much is known about them, though. Octopus like to hide, and those guys are way down deep.
Yeah, but God knows them. They can't hide from God. He knows right where they're at. We can't hide from God either. He's always with us.
It's true. There's absolutely nowhere that we can hide from God. It's pretty amazing.
Okay, let's go.
I thought you were never going to walk again. Some protein bar.
Nope. All this talk about octopuses. I need to see some, like, right now.
And on the way there, we can be reminded of how awesome our God is.
Welcome back to the Lighthouse Lessons, Islanders. Yesterday, we said that God is what? Do you remember? That's right. We said that God is great. If you look on our Mystery Island treasure map, you'll see our medallion 1. God is great. Well, today we've got another mystery clue to figure out, so let's get started. I'm going to need your help. Look up, look down, look all around. We're looking for a mystery clue. We're looking for the letter O. Do you see it on our treasure map? I see it right here. There is our letter O, and our medallion is going to go right there. Our letter O today stands for a word, O for omni. Omni means all. And we're going to be talking about 3 words that start with the word omni today. The first word is going to be omniscience. God knows all. The second word will be omnipotent. That means all powerful. God is all powerful. And finally, we're going to talk about the third word being omnipresent. That means God is present. He is everywhere at the same time, all the time. And our medallion, Almighty, that's what our God is. He is omniscient, He is omnipotent, and He is omnipresent. Okay, we're going to pray today. Pray that we get these words right and pray that we get our lesson. Let us pray. Dear Lord, we thank you for being such a wonderful God. We thank you for being present in our lives, for being powerful, and for knowing all the things that we need to have known about us, Lord. You know all and you are all. We just ask that you be with us during this lesson. Prepare our hearts, Lord, to receive your message. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, our lesson today comes from Jonah. And I'm going to get my Bible. And perhaps you've read the book of Jonah before. Jonah is a very small book. It has about 4 chapters. Let me see. Here we go. I'm going to be reading from the first chapter of Jonah. And I encourage you, you older kids, if you've not read the book of Jonah, it is 4 chapters. It will not take you long to read it, but I think you will find it very enjoyable. And our first verses that we're going to read is from Jonah 1, verses 1 through 4. And in these verses, there was a man named Jonah. He was a prophet of God. A prophet is a person who speaks for God, and every word comes true. God told Jonah to go to Nineveh to tell them about God. Now, Nineveh was a nasty place, and Jonah didn't want to go. Listen to what God says. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, son of Amittai. Go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. But Jonah ran away from the Lord, and he headed for Tarshish. He went down to Joppa, where he found a ship bound for that port. After paying the fare, he went aboard and he sailed for Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. So in those verses, we see that Jonah was trying to run from God. Has God ever laid something on your heart that you knew you needed to do, but you didn't want to do it? Or maybe has your parents sometimes told you something that you should do, and instead of doing what they said, you would flee or run, or not literally hide, but you would make yourself scarce? That's what Jonah is doing here. He doesn't want to go to Nineveh. It is a bad place. He doesn't like the people there. Oh my, doesn't that sound familiar? Do you ever go to school and sometimes your teacher puts you in a group of children that you don't want to be around, and she says, you all are going to be doing a project together, and in your mind you say, oh my gosh, I don't want to be with those people. I don't want to work with that group. I know that's happened to all of you. And basically, that's what's happening to Jonah here. God is sending him somewhere to do a work that Jonah doesn't want to do. He doesn't like those people. Well, the next thing that happens is Jonah flees, as we just read, and he gets on the boat, and a storm comes up. Let's look at verse 4 again. It says, Then the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. Well, who's in charge of the weather? That's right, God. In fact, we've seen that many, many times where we live. The weather is so unpredictable, but God is in charge of it. And there's nothing we can do when a snowstorm comes, when a hurricane comes, or bad weather. We can't do anything about it. God is all powerful. He is in charge of that. Now think about this next part and decide if you think God knew everything that was going on. Listen to verses 5 through 9. All the sailors were afraid, and each cried out to his own God. Now, I find that pretty interesting there. It didn't say they cried out to God. They cried out to their own God, meaning their false gods. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the load. But Jonah had gone below deck, and where he lay down, he fell into a deep sleep. And the captain went to him and said, How can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he'll take notice of us so that we will not perish. Then the sailors said to each other, Come, let us cast lots to find out who is responsible for this calamity. They cast lots, and the lot fell to Jonah. So they asked him, Tell us. Who is responsible for making all this trouble for us? What kind of work do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you? And he answered. Jonah knew it was all his fault. I am a Hebrew, and I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the dry land. Well, we know that Jonah knew that he was the cause of the problem. He knew that the storm was because of him and that God was following him. He knew God and he knew that he had done wrong. And he pretty much fessed up to what he had done. And in verse 10, I want to read that again, and I want you to decide, is God everywhere? Listen to verse 10 again. It says, this terrified them, and they asked, what have you done? They knew he was running away from the Lord because he had already told them so. So was God omnipresent? Was he everywhere? He was. Even though Jonah had left where God wanted him to go, he wanted him to go to Nineveh and had gone as far the other way as he could, God knew where he was because God is omnipresent and he knows where we are today. So that's something to think about. You might be somewhere you don't want to be, and your mom and dad might not know you're there, and your teacher might not know you're there. Your pastor might not know what's going on, but God does because he's omnipresent. He knows everything about us. He knows where we are all the time. That's something to think about. Now, close your eyes for just a minute and listen to this next part that I'm going to read. Raise your hand when you hear something about an animal. Now, I know you can't raise your hand here with me, but at home you can say, aha, I got it. When you hear something about an animal, think about it. Think about what it says. All right, in verses 11 through 17, it says, listen good now, and think about that animal. The sea was getting rougher and rougher, so they asked him, what should we do? What should we do to you to make the sea calm down for us? And Jonah said, pick me up and throw me into the sea, and it will become calm. I know that it's my fault that this great storm has come upon you. Instead, the men did their best to row back to land. They kept trying to calm the boat down and to calm the sea down, but they couldn't. Finally, they cried out to the Lord, please, Lord, forgive us. Do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, Lord, have done as you pleased. Then they took Jonah and they threw him overboard, and the raging sea calmed. And at this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. Now the Lord provided a huge fish to swallow Jonah. And Jonah was in the belly of the fish 3 days and 3 nights. Wow. Can you imagine? And when I was reading this, you know what stuck out in my mind? I've heard this story ever since I was a little girl, probably as young as you all are. But it said God provided a fish to swallow Jonah. I'd never thought about that before. But that even says to me that God picked out the whale that he wanted to swallow Jonah. He didn't just have him thrown in the ocean. He had a whale there ready to scoop him up and swallow him. That's pretty amazing. That's an almighty, powerful God. So, what was the animal we were looking for? The whale. That's exactly right. Now remember, Jonah was in the belly of the fish. Does anybody know what happened to Jonah next? I'm sure you do because you've heard this story over and over again. Now, in Jonah 2:10, the next chapter, it says, let me turn my page here. Well, before I get to that, what did Jonah do? Now, it took Jonah 3 days, I guess, to come around. I don't know why he stayed in there 3 days. I sort of do, but we won't get into that today. There's a message and another lesson about that altogether. But Jonah stayed in that whale's belly for 3 days and 3 nights in total darkness. Do you think it smelled really good down there in the belly of the whale? We've all smelled fish before, haven't we? I wouldn't want to be in a fish market. Although I love fish and seafood, it would be hard to stay there for 3 days and 3 nights. And Jonah had been there, and he was probably afraid, and he was scared. He finally did what he should have done, and he prayed to God, and he asked God to please help him. You can read that account. The prayer that he read said is beautiful. It's in 1 Jonah. But I'm just going to tell you today that he prayed to God. And in verse 10 of chapter 2, it says, "And the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land." Ooh, not a good entrance, but it was better than staying in the belly of the whale. So our lesson goes on to tell us, if you finish reading Jonah on your own, Jonah did go to Nineveh, and he did do as God asked. And the people of Nineveh turned to God. You can read the whole account for yourself in the book of Jonah, and I really hope you will. It's a great small book in the Bible. Now, this isn't the only place in the Bible where we hear about God being all-knowing and all-powerful and all-present. In fact, the Bible has lots of accounts showing that. We're actually going to check into one of those other accounts in just a second. But for right now, let's listen to what someone else has to share with you. All right, welcome back. Our next part of our lesson comes from Psalms 139. And we're going to talk a little bit about those big words we mentioned earlier: omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Our God knows everything about us. It is amazing to me to imagine that He knew me before I was even born. The Bible tells us that. God knows everything about every person. And I want you to listen to what it says in Psalms 139 and think about what he's saying. It just blows my mind. In verses 1 through 6, I want to share that with you. Psalms 139. You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me, too lofty for me to attain. Now, boys and girls, that's really powerful what we're reading in this scripture. God knows your thoughts before you even think them. You can be somewhere that you don't think anybody even knows you're around, but God does. He knows what you're thinking. And it says, before a word is on your tongue, the Lord knows it completely. He knows what you're going to say before you say it. He knows when you come in. He knows when you go out. He knows everything there is to know about you. And you know, sometimes when we're with our friends, there are probably things about us that we don't want our friends to know. If you're going to your friend's house, you might not want your friend's parents to know something about you or your family. Or if you're in school, you might not want the teacher to know that you really haven't done your homework. Maybe you just pretended that you had done it, or maybe you didn't study, but you led the teacher to think that you had. God knows all these things. The people that you're around may not know. They may believe you, but God knows everything about you. And as it says here, He knows your thoughts, He knows your ways, He knows your words before you ever speak them. And to me, that is a big wow. He knows how many grains of sand there are. And one example that our lesson gave that I thought was hilarious, it says He knows how much lint is in a person's belly button. Oh my, never thought about that. But He knows everything. He knows about all the animals, when they're going to be born. He knew when you were going to be born. He knows all the things about us that we could possibly ever imagine. our next word is omnipresent, and that means all present. Now, there are places in the world that we'll never go. Probably. I think most of us would say there are limitations to what we can do and where we can go. One of those places that I hope I'm never found at is in the bottom of the ocean. Our animal today is Flip, the flapjack octopus. And he is a master at hiding, as most octopuses are. They live at the bottom of the ocean in the deepest, darkest places. And you may not ever see an octopus up close and personal unless you're at an aquarium. I hope you're never up close and personal to a real live octopus, but God is. They're in the deepest part of the ocean. And you might say, well, why? If there's an animal that's going to live in the deepest, darkest part of the ocean, did God create it if nobody's going to see it? Well, God put it there for a reason, and he knows it's there. All the animals in the darkest, deepest parts of the ocean, all the birds that fly in the sky, all the stars in the universe, the billions and billions of stars that are many, many, many billions of miles away, God put them there, and he put them there for a reason. And while we'll never be there on a star in a galaxy far away, or hopefully at the bottom of the ocean, God put these things there for a reason, and he is there as well. He is all present. He is everywhere. Nothing can be hidden from our God. He sees these things. He created them, including that flapjack octopus, Flip. And he is everywhere at the same time, all the time. That's pretty amazing. He's in the farthest depths of the ocean with every creature that lives down in the dark. He's in the highest heavens where every star exists. He is everywhere. There's absolutely nowhere you can go that God is not there. Now, as a Christian, how does that make you feel? It makes me feel awesome to know that my God is everywhere I am, because I know that if I'm somewhere and I'm in trouble, I know that God is with me, and that brings me great, great comfort, and that should bring you comfort as well. If you don't know God as you should, I pray that you'll invite him into your heart so that he can be there with you and so that you'll feel his presence. He's there anyway, but it's wonderful knowing that he's there and knowing that he is your God. God is omnipresent. He is everywhere. Now, the next word is omnipotent. That means he is all powerful. And you know, we hear a lot today about superheroes and everything, but God is our only true superhero. He did many wonderful things in the Bible. And you know, he has power over nature. Now, I want to stress something here, something that bothers me. You hear people talking about Mother Nature didn't like us today. She sent thunderstorms and clouds and rain. And there used to be a commercial on TV about Mother Nature. Perhaps your parents remember it. And it said something like this. There was all these catastrophes, and it says something about Mother Nature didn't like that, or something to that effect. Boys and girls, Mother Nature does not exist. God exists. He is in charge of all nature because he created it. Don't get that confused with Mother Nature. Mother Nature is just a phrase that we sometimes use the wrong way. Okay, now, I have a question for you. Think about all the times in the Bible when God calmed the storms. You know, when Peter was walking on the water to God, remember that story? Remember the story we just had about Jonah and the well and how the storm was calmed? Remember the story of Noah and his family out in the boat for 40 days and 40 nights while it was raining? God has control over everything. He is omnipotent. He is all-powerful. He can calm the seas and he can calm the storms. That tells us what? God is in control of the weather. He has power over other things as well. How many times in the Bible do you remember when Jesus would heal someone? Remember when the young girl was lying on her bed and Jesus came and she arose? She got up. Remember the man who put the soil, the mud on his eyes and he could see again? Jesus told him, that he would be able to see, and he was. All those miracles in the Bible, the lame man who was able to walk again. Remember the person who touched the hem of Jesus' garment? There was just one miracle after the other, and several examples in our Bible of God healing the sick people. What does that tell us? He has power over what? Sickness, that's true. And God gives us doctors and nurses. And I believe he expects us to use the things that he has given us. He gives them knowledge. He gives them skills. He gives us medicine. He gives us scientists to find cures for diseases. But we all need to remember that all their knowledge and all their skills come from God. He gives them that. He has the power over sickness and disease. Another thing that God has the power over that we've read about in the Bible was he has the power over death. We know the story of him raising Lazarus, and we know that Jesus himself lay in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights. And on the third day, he what? Yes, that's right. He arose from the dead. God has the power to raise us from death. And those of us who believe in him, we're going to be with him again one day. Those who have died before us, God is going to raise them, and we're going to all be living with him one day. God has the power over death, and we don't need to fear. Yes, he can bring dead people back to life. God has that power. And boys and girls, if he has the power over sickness, if he has the power over the weather, over storms, if he has the power over death, there's one more thing that Jesus has the power over. Our God has the power to forgive us of our sins and our wrongdoing. Where else in this world can we go when everything is against us but to God? He is all powerful. He can take care of every situation that we are in. Someone gave me a plaque many, many years ago. I was probably in my 20s, so that was a long time ago. But the little plaque that goes on your wall, it says, God, help me to remember that nothing is going to happen to me today that you and I can't handle together. And I want you young people to know that. There is absolutely nothing that God can't handle for you if you trust him. He is everywhere. He is all-knowing, and he is all-powerful. His omniscience, his omnipresence, and his omnipotent power can be with us and be a comfort in our lives. There is nothing that is too great for our God to do in our lives. And he has the power to forgive sins. God is the only one who can do that. Now, I do want to read, before we close, I want to read verses 13 through 16. It says, this is amazing to me. I love this scripture. And as teenagers, it's very important to you, probably more so than some of our younger children. At least I think so. It says, for you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place, when I was woven together in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Boys and girls, that is mighty. That is powerful. God knew you before you were ever formed in your mother's belly. He knew all the days of your life. You are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. Don't ever let anyone tell you any different. That is mighty. Our God is omnipotent. He is mighty and all-powerful. Every time you see a bird, it shows God's power. Every time you hear that someone got well, it shows God's power. Every time you see it rain, it shows God's power. Every time you hear that somebody has become a child of God, it shows God's power. I hope that all of you, you young children, you teenagers, I hope you know Jesus as your Savior. He is all powerful and He is there to save us. He has forgiven us of our sins. All we have to do is ask Him into our heart. Our God is a mighty, mighty God. And I'm going to review just a little bit before we close. I'll have some questions for you, and I hope you know the answer. The first question is, who is our animal pal today, and what does she remind us about God? Do you remember our animal today in Octopus Inlet? The answer was Flip, the flapjack octopus. She lives deep in the mysterious dark bottom of the ocean, but God knows exactly what she's doing and where she is, just like He knows exactly what we're doing and where we are. He is with her there just as He is with us. Our next question, who tried to run away from God and why? I know you know that answer. The answer is Jonah. He didn't want to go to Nineveh because the people there were cruel. Jonah could run from God, but he couldn't hide. And boys and girls, the same is true for us. We can run from God, but we will never be able to hide from Him because He is everywhere. His omniscience, His omnipresence, He knows where we are all the time. So you can't hide from Him. What did the sailors do with Jonah? Probably the same thing we would have done. What? They threw him overboard. And what happened after they threw him overboard? God stopped the storm and everything calmed right back down. What does our O word, omniscient, mean? All-knowing, that's right. God has never learned anything new because He's always known everything. He is omniscient. What does omnipresent mean? He's all present. God is present all the time, everywhere. He is present at the same time, all the time, everywhere. He's right here, right now, with me, and He's right there with you, even though we can't see Him. And our last word was omnipotent. That means all powerful. That's right. God is all powerful. He can do anything He chooses. Of course, He wouldn't choose to do anything evil or wrong because He's perfect. He's our God. True or false? We don't need to be anxious because God is much greater and bigger than we are thinking. He can handle it. Is that true, boys and girls? Absolutely true. In closing today, I hope you remember how awesome and how powerful and how mighty our God is. Behold, I am the Lord, the God of all flesh. Is anything too hard for me? Absolutely not. Thank you.
O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. Even before a word is on my tongue, you know it altogether. If I take the wings of the morning and dwell in the uttermost parts of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me. For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you. For I am fearfully and wonderfully made.
Row your boat on the stormy seas. On the stars on overboard. Now the storm is still. Row your boat while the storm is still. Jonah's in the a great big fish. God is with him still. Row, row, row your boat. Jonah's on the shore. Jonah learns the Lord is near, with him evermore. What did the tree wear to the ocean?
Swim trunks.
Owen, why is the beach so friendly?